Conversation is going to be boldened and made deeper into a discussion looking at how climate change actually relates with these services, with hygiene, with sanitation, with water, but then again also how the gender issue comes into play. As much as here they have made mention of how women typically would contribute to a household, there are other things that they've not mentioned, such as the sanitation of womanhood itself, but I believe that that's going to be touched best on with the country director for WaterAid Uganda that is joining us here in morning at NTV this morning. Her name is Joyce Magala. You're most welcome, Joyce.
Thank you very much.
Good morning to you, and how are you?
Good morning. I'm very well, thank you. And how are you?
I'm fantastic.
Yes.
Now, when people hear the word wash, they're thinking automatic dictionary word, washing hands and things like that. But I know that it's an acronym that has been designed to cater to different elements of, hygiene. Let's talk about those.
Thank you very much. WASH is an acronym for water, sanitation and hygiene. And these three components are very important in our daily lives. And if you look at water, sanitation and hygiene, it cuts across all sectors, the sectors of health, education, energy. So you realize that water becomes very important for us. And as human beings, this is an item that we cannot live without, because we use water on a daily basis for drinking, for washing, for bathing, for construction, for watering our animals. So water is life. And without water, it becomes very difficult for us to survive as human beings.
Okay.
And the intersection between water, sanitation and hygiene is very critical, because if you lack access to water, then you have to look for it. So we realize that women walk very long distances, and the girls and boys, but most especially the girls, walk long distances. This denies them of the opportunity to go to school early, and it also creates challenges for the women who have to take care of the domestic chores. So you realize that water is very essential in our lives, and we need to have it safe, clean, but also easily accessible.
Okay.
So with water comes the practices of sanitation and hygiene. One has to wash their hands after visiting the toilet. And this is the most important hygiene behavior that everyone should emphasize. It's taught in schools, but also in the homes. Hand washing is a practice that eliminates close to 85% of the water sanitation related diseases, according to the studies. So prevention is better than cure. And if you have the water easy by the toilet side, then you are able to ensure that everyone will wash their hands after latrine use. And then sanitation, we have to clean the facilities that we use. And these are the bathrooms. We have to clean the toilets. We know that toilets attract flies. So when we have these flies, then it is the flies that spread the germs that lead to diarrhea and so many other infections. Our emphasis as WaterAid is to ensure that everyone, everywhere, accesses sustainable water, sanitation and hygiene. Okay. And we launched a country strategy in 2023, and it's a 5-year country strategy that is aiming at that mission of making sure that every Ugandan accesses safe water in a sustainable manner. Okay. By sustainability, I mean the water must be well taken care of. It must be flowing all the time in the taps, and the water has to be treated where the need be, and the water must be carried in a proper safe chain whereby from the source to the consumer, the water is safe for consumption.
Unfortunately, we do have challenges such as climate change that are not making that a reality in so many communities. So talk to us about the impact of the present day climate change and how it's actually affected these wash services.
Yeah, climate change is a challenge, a glaring challenge as we've seen. Climate change comes with extreme weather conditions. And these extreme weather conditions are a result of too much water or little water. When the water is too much, then you will have consequences of flooding, you'll have consequences of landslides and erosion. All of us have seen how our hills and soils have been degraded. It's a result of the extreme weather changes. And then we've seen, for example, in Bududa, the landslides that are really causing, leading even to death. It's because of the too much water. And worse still, when we experience the weather changes, like the too much rain, it destroys our water sources. The water sources could be a big tank that is a reservoir tank that is constructed to make water flow to the communities. It may be a spring well, it may be a shallow well. So we realize that most of these water sources are gravity fed. So when we get the landslides or too much flood, too much water, it wears away the facilities, the water facilities. And once these are washed away, then communities do not have access to the safe water that was in place. But also, the facilities may not be washed away, but the challenge would be the water gets contaminated. So now we realize that once the water is contaminated, it leads to health hazards because you'll realize that at times there are toilets built up on the hill, and now all the contamination goes into the water. Once the people take this water, it causes a challenge of health and causes diseases to them. So that is why, as WaterAid, we have specifically focused on an aim in our country strategy that looks at climate resilient wash. And by climate resilient wash, we are talking about climate smart technologies for the water. We are talking about piped water. We are talked about ferrocement tanks that are very well built in good concrete so that they can be able to withstand the heavy rains or the floods that do come. And we are also looking at early warning systems that will enable the government, the local governments, the communities to detect chances of having these extreme weather conditions. And once we are able to detect these, then the authorities will be able to put in place and also be able to design those interventions that are required to warn people about these extreme weather changes, which are rain or drought due to much sunshine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, in regards to that, I know that as WaterAid Uganda, you've been able to actually implement a pilot project to study and see exactly where you need to streamline. What are some of the lessons that you actually picked out of that implementation project that will then feed into actualization and realization of what we are talking about?
In 2020 up to 2022, WaterAid Uganda implemented a project in the Mpologoma catchment, and this was a project that was supporting the government and communities in resilient initiatives to reduce on the vulnerability of the communities. And one of the projects was implemented in Namutumba. And this project really showed us the challenges that are faced, those challenges that we've talked about, like the women walking long distances, the women experiencing domestic violence because probably their spouses think they have taken so long at the water source, and yet in actual reality, these women have been queuing because of so many people that are using these water sources. So domestic violence was quite rampant in Namutumba, and also the girl child could not go to school because they go to school but they go late because they first have to go and fetch this water. When they go late, it affects their concentration levels. But also at the schools where these girls are, they did not have sufficient latrines. They did not have any bathing rooms. So what WaterAid did was to provide these gender-sensitive latrines, whereby we have stances separated for girls and stances that are separated for boys. One, we increased on the number of stances to allow for ease of use, but also separating them is very important so that there is privacy and dignity. And most of all, we know as women, we go through that menstrual cycle. So the girls did not have any rooms where they could bathe during their menstrual periods and also be able to change their sanitary wear. We came up with those bathrooms where they can change, and also built incinerators for the proper disposal of this sanitary wear. And this makes a whole difference because the girls are confident when they go to school. They know they can spend these 2 or 3 days very comfortable and study without any fear that they are going to be messed up. And for the women, having water accessible all the time reduces on the distances that they have to travel to get the water, so that they can be able to concentrate on their activities, which ends up increasing productivity, but it also reduces on the chances of getting diseases like diarrhea that result from unsafe water.
Well, those are very interesting steps that you have taken, I believe, to integrate gender into what you would be calling the climate resilient wash services. Now, I know that also at the end of the day, you've not been able to do this by yourself as WaterAid Uganda. It has come through coordination and collaboration. So talk to us about the importance of coordination and collaboration. You've talked about technologies, you've talked about early warnings, all of which you directly don't have access and ability to, but the other entities that actually are responsible over those that you can collaborate with in order to then deliver a resilient services for WASH.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And this is very important, which is really actually the gist of our approaches that we use as WaterAid. We believe in partnerships. We believe in coordination. We believe in collaboration. So WaterAid and other civil society organizations only supplement the efforts of government. And we start with supporting the development or enhancement of the policy and strategy frameworks that are in place. So we participate in all the different discussions, dialogue. Right now, we know that we have the National Development Plan 3 that is almost coming to an end, and we are in the process of developing the National Development Plan 4. WaterAid has been one of those organizations that has participated in this process so that we are able to influence, so that we are able to contribute to these policies that will enable us to make sure everybody accesses water and sanitation and also address the climate change issues. We are working very closely with other civil society organizations, and we have a coordination mechanism through UWASNet where we come together and have a collective voice so that we can be able to make our cases as far as water and sanitation is concerned. And we are also working with the private sector. When we talk about climate smart technologies, it requires a lot of innovation. Yes. It requires a lot of creativity. the private sector comes in very handy to guide us on the different initiatives and innovations that we are coming up with.
Okay.
And we know we cannot do it alone. We have to work with district local governments who are mandated to deliver the water and sanitation.
Okay.
We have to work we are working very closely with the Ministry of Water and Environment, which is our mother ministry for water.
Now, speaking of working, and in closing, I know that there's an upcoming project that you are yet to implement. Talk to us about that and your closing remarks.
Yes, in our strategy, we developed, we have a project under the climate resilient WASH, and the project really looks at climate resilient early warning systems. And this project is going to be implemented in eastern Uganda. It's going to be implemented in 11 districts, and the project has 4 major aims. One is to put up mechanisms to detect to develop the early warning systems. It's looking at enhancing the capacities of all stakeholders that are involved in that region, and specifically it is going to be implemented in Pologoma catchment area. Okay. So all those 11 districts are in Pologoma catchment area. Okay. And we are going to make sure that there are very clear monitoring systems to ensure that all issues to do with early detection, appropriate technologies that are climate smart, and communities are able to really adopt these approaches. Okay. To reduce on their vulnerability.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the efforts that you are doing as WaterAid Uganda. Of course, notable achievements in the efforts of climate resilience and gender integration have been shared here by Joyce Magala, who is the country director with WaterAid Uganda. She has talked about the importance of coordination and collaboration, which again makes emphasis on partnership and eases on funding, I do believe, to be able to achieve the things that they have to achieve through the WASH services in consideration and integration of gender. That brings us to the end of these conversations. More coming your way. Don't go away.